All right, everybody. Welcome to 3D Vision Technologies SOLIDWORKS Composer webinar. All right, so my name is Randy Simmons with 3D Vision Technologies, and we're going to spend the next half hour here showing you guys some content output of what SOLIDWORKS Composer can do and what it's used for and who it's good for and those kinds of things. So you may have somebody in your company doing technical communication already. It may be your job or the engineer's job to do that, or it may be a separate person in your company. But this is kind of what we see with the typical process for technical communication. Once engineering and design is done, then technical graphics people may take over, or you do your technical graphics processing. Maybe bitmaps or screenshots from the CAD files. At best, it's going to be some kind of vector content that you're going to put into Adobe Illustrator or something like that. At worst case, it's going to be maybe a digital photograph of the actual product on the floor after it's been put together. Then that gets dumped into FrameMaker, Word, Microsoft Publisher, something like that, and then probably eventually to a PDF, which may go to your website or to print, paper documentation. What we're seeing a lot of in those things are, thousands of words, low quality screenshots from the CAD files or screenshots from AutoCAD drawings or something like that, and or digital photos. And all those pretty much, when you think about it, are pretty low quality and not very effective. What if somebody doesn't understand the language? Then words are no good. What if the models change? Then the photographs have to be redone, et cetera, et cetera. And plus, a lot of times the screenshots are pretty bad quality, just a screen grab with a Snagit tool or something like that, and then you want to scale those up, and they don't look very good as far as line art. So our idea is that you use SOLIDWORKS Composer instead of doing all those things and leverage all that 3D data that you've already created in SOLIDWORKS or other CAD packages as well. Composer is really CAD agnostic. It doesn't really care where the files come from. We can deal with IGES files, step files, and many, many other file types. Works very well with SOLIDWORKS in that it has some update functionality. So we want to leverage that 3D data that you've already created and make better quality, more effective type images just for 2D, and even something interactive that possibly somebody could have up on a Windows tablet and touch screen out in the field and be taking something apart, putting it together, see maintenance manuals and things like that. Composer is just, however, the authoring tool for creating the graphical contents. So the images that go in the document, if it's just 2D, all the exploded views, all the balloons and so on, bills of materials, all that can be created in Composer, and 3D animations and interactive content. Gets used by tech writers and illustrators, mainly used by non-engineers. We thought when this product first came out, and the non-engineers would be the main users. We find now that about 50% of the users are actually CAD users, SOLIDWORKS users. They find this tool much, much easier to do their technical publication in rather than trying to do screenshots and things out of SOLIDWORKS or making a special view in SOLIDWORKS just for a picture in a manual. And many, many types of things you can do with this, obviously. Repair manuals, training materials, web-based catalogs, and we're going to show you many examples of these. Another great thing that Composer can do, especially when it's working with SOLIDWORKS, is it can help you reduce time. The old way of doing this is you had to wait, of course, until the product was pretty much done or almost completely done before you could do the documentation for it. You release that, and then if there's any changes, you have to redo that, right? Well, with Composer, you can start doing documentation earlier in the process because the documents are interactive. They will update when the CAD files update. We'll show you how that works in a second, giving you a potential time savings of all that extra time at the end that you had to tack on to do the manuals. They could be created as you go, or mostly as you go. The way that works is with the update functionality. So from SOLIDWORKS or from whatever CAD package, you're going to collect the data. You're going to bring it into Composer and author your content. That is your images, your videos, your 3D interactive things, 2D or 3D content, and then you distribute it however you want, through PDFs, through Word documents, through the internet, web pages, however you want want to show that data. Then when there's a change, the change goes through Composer, and the update passes through Composer. You make sure the images and the content you created are correct, and then you republish those out again. So it updates in Composer. You have to republish to make sure things are the way you want them to be. We can't do vector and raster output. Raster output is, what most people think of as a crappy pixely image. A vector output is a nice clean line art. We can do very, very high quality raster, and we can do the vector as well, like you're used to in a nice clean PDF. And then just here again, some of the areas where you could use this and some ideas of what you could use Composer for. All right, we're going to take a look at some output examples. We're going to look at 2D stuff first, and then we'll take a look at 3D. So as far as 2D goes, most people, instantly think of owner's manuals, maintenance manuals, and things like that. So here's an example of a PDF, and all of the pictures in here, all of the images, the 2D images in this case, were created in Composer. So all of these images over here with the arrows and the extra, attention to them were created in Composer. The words and the numbers and the layout, that was all created in Word or Microsoft Publisher or whatever publishing tool you choose to use. We just make the images and the content that goes in the document. Imagine trying to do some of these pictures with the arrows and things inside of SOLIDWORKS. You'd have to draw up a part with an arrow. We don't really have any exploded views in here, but in the next document you'll see exploded views. These images then are linked to actual files out on the hard drive setting in a folder, and when you republish from Composer, then these images in the document would update. Let's take a look at this example, another owner's manual. This is a SOLIDWORKS customer and a Composer customer. They make radio-controlled cars, and this is an example of their owner's manual. So any of the pictures, let's scroll down a little bit, that you see in here that look like CAD files have come from Composer in this case. So here's some examples of a few kind of exploded views, giving you some ideas of things we can do inside of Composer. Really one of the best ones, I think, are these where they start showing some transparency like this, giving you an idea of what we can show and what kind of content we can create in Composer. All the way down to, much more detailed exploded views like this. So we'll show you how easy it is to do these as well. Just think about trying to do these kinds of things in SOLIDWORKS. It would take a lot of time. Here's just some other examples of 2D output. Nice clean vector images, as we mentioned. Very scalable. It doesn't matter if you shrink these or stretch these, they'll stay nice clean lines versus a raster image that would be pixely. Mixed modes of color and black and white, and nice shading options, transparent options. You also see again here the arrows, instructional type arrows for disassembling and assembling things. And then we do even have rendering tools inside of Composer too, to do images like this. Set a depth of field to blur the background, a nice zoom tool here called the digger tool to show detailed information and dig down into a model, and then the ability, of course, to add materials and lighting and do a rendering. Another 2D example taken a little bit further is you could do something like an online parts manual. So all of this content that I'm about to show here was created in Composer. All of the images, the bill of material was created in Composer too. Nice thing here is you don't have to use, or you don't use the bill of material from the CAD package. You create your own bill of material in Composer with just the parts you want to show. So let me open this guy up here in Internet Explorer. So we get some nice cross-highlighting. When I float on a part on the screen, it cross-highlights into the bill of material, and vice versa. If I highlight on the bill of material, it'll show me on the screen. And this is just a web page. You could have this up on your website. Done some hyperlinking so that when you click in certain areas of this, it takes you to another Composer output file. These Composer output files are SVG files, but there's many, many other types of files you can export. Just the one we used in this case. And then I click in here, it explodes that out, and then I can come in here and say, oh yeah, that's the part I want to order. You could have another page come up, take their credit card information or send them a quote. They can back up through these images and maybe dig into another area. I want to dig into here, and oh, I need to order a new spray tip. Back up, come into here, oh, I need a new suction tube or a new suction filter in this case, right? Navigate back and forth through this. Like we said, having this up on your website would be a neat idea. All this content, all these images created out of Composer. So obviously Composer is pretty good at 2D information, and then like we said, you can publish this out to Word or FrameMaker or Microsoft Publisher, whatever tool you want to use for publishing. And we'll show you how you actually make some of that 2D content in a little bit. But we also want to show you some of the 3D interactive content that we can do. So for 3D content, interactive content, we use a Composer Player tool. So the Composer Player, you can think of that like eDrawings. It's free for anybody to download. You can embed that in a web page. You can embed that in PowerPoint. You can give the player with the file. And then anybody with a desktop computer or a touchscreen computer out in the field could pull this up. Now this one is just pretty much playing through a video that was created in Composer. Down at the bottom of the screen there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps that somebody could actually click on if they wanted to go back in time. But it's not really letting me interact with this document. I can stop and rotate and pan and zoom anytime I want. It is a full viewing tool. I can hide parts and things like that. But it's for the instructions, it's pretty much just playing through here. Here you see I can go to step 4 if I want. I can jump back to step 2 if I want to, if I've missed something. Now you could have instructions with words coming up and text boxes with words coming up at the same time if you really wanted to in here. But this one was just showing, just kind of playing through. Let's get a little more interactive here. And this one is going to wait for me. So here's the rear end of a motorcycle, and you notice a part is flashing. And it waits until I click on that part before it will proceed in the animation. Now, while it's waiting, I can zoom, pan, rotate around, take a look at whatever I want, and when I click on the blinking part, it's going to put me in the view it wants me to be in, and then proceed in the animation. So a little bit more interactive here. It's waiting for the user to actually click. You could have a box pop up that they have to fill their initials in or something like that, if you really wanted to, for them to check off that step. Here's a tool called the Digger tool, which shows a magnified view. And as I click on each step, it proceeds in the animation. We got a button here to restart the whole thing if I really wanted to. So a little bit more interactive. IKEA is a big user of Composer. They use it for 2D paper manuals. They don't do, as far as I know, anything like this interactive, but this is kind of an idea of what they could do. So we got a JPEG image that pops up over here to show what the tools you need. Here I can click on this link to download the actual 2D manual, and this manual was created with Composer. All these images. This may be what you're more used to seeing from IKEA or cabinets, things like this. But who's going to read the 2D manual if you've got this awesome 3D thing on their iPhone or on their on the website? Here they can choose their own adventure and click on that side panel. Okay, these are the parts you're going to need. You're going to need to install these in 2 places. Here's how you put these screws in. You're going to need to put these fasteners on the back. Here's how these little cam things work. And then you get a choice. Do you want to go back to the beginning, go back to the cabinet? Now I want to see how to assemble the top. So it's waiting for me to click on a part before it proceeds in the animation, and I get to choose what the order that I want to see things in this case. There's also steps at the bottom where I could jump to any of the steps that I wanted. So just a little more interactive, a little more choice as we go along there. Here's complete interactiveness. I'm able to zoom, pan, rotate, spin around this car. There's really no pre-prepared things in this example. Here I can choose colors of the car. So this is more like, you know, a configure online type thing. But I click on a door, a window, a mirror, and they move. I can open the doors, roll down the windows, open the sunroof, all the time spinning around, rotating around. Opening and closing, moving positions of things. And all we've done here is just saved a view with the door open, door closed, an interactive view they're called, and you can move these things around. So I click it on the doors again and they close. I click on the windows again and they close. So the ultimate in interactiveness there, to just investigate something. Here's an example of a cool little RC helicopter. We've got some neat balloon views here. I want to show you some of the drawing type things that we can do out of Composer as well. So just some saved views that I have here. Showing how the controller works and what it does. But just static pictures these are. Now here's an interactive. So I can click on different views. Oh, I want to go to the up position, and it's actually showing me, or the down position in that case, showing me how the controller, how to move the stick on the controller, and what the result would be on the helicopter flying. So there's all these different positions, just like the door open, door closed on the car. Here's a neat example, maybe an online type thing you would have on your website. I want this racing seat, and I've got 3 different choices in colors that I can choose from. I want to spin and rotate this around. This is all, once again, in the free Composer player. I've got different seat positions that I want to check out. Any combination of those, any combination of colors and those positions, of course. So just nice custom buttons that have been made here with images on them. Very, very easy to do in the Composer tool. Here's a link to an exploded view with a bill of materials if I need to order some parts for the motor or the frame underneath. Here's even a link to a video to show me how to replace the motor in the bottom if it burns out or goes bad. Detailed step-by-step instructions. So a lot of people are using this for instructions on the shop floor, in clean rooms where there can't be paper manuals or things like that. Or touch screens just to be more interactive. And once again, you could have it pause. You could have instructions pop up just like that little example there where it showed change the motor. And then we're just playing the video backwards here to put it back together. So 3D interactive assembly instructions, much, much more understandable, much cleaner than trying to do something with words or photographs. And leveraging all the 3D content that you've already created in your CAD package. It makes total sense. All right, let's take a look at actually inside Composer and how you do some of this stuff. Oh, one more thing I want to show you first too. This is an example. You can go actually right now to their website, tomcattrikes.com, tomcattrikes. Or do a Google search on that. And these guys build tricycles for handicapped children. So here you can see you can select a color. This is a lot like the seat example, but here it is running right in their web page. They've got the player embedded in the web page. And then you've got these different options that you can choose from, how you want to configure your tricycle. Different pedal options, different seats, different colors, of course. All the while you can zoom, pan, and rotate around in there to see what it looks like. Then you come down here to the bottom, and they've got information in this case to get a quote. So you fill it out, your name, your email address, and hey, tell me how much this tricycle is going to cost. So a neat example of an online configurator, if you want to call it that. All that was created with Composer and just the player embedded in their web page. And then some fancy buttons, an interface to switch between views is basically what it's doing. All right, let's take a look inside actual Composer. So here's that same assembly you saw before. And I have the ability to hide parts, very easy. I can change transparency of parts. So every part has properties over here on the left side. I can change the color completely independent of the CAD model and hide and show and get down to just what I want to see. For creating something like an exploded view, all I got to do is select the parts that I want, and then we have some awesome transformation tools to do linear and spherical and cylindrical explodes. In this case, we'll do a linear. I just grab this arrow, pull and drag, and I get an automatic explode of all those pieces. If there's any parts you want to change the order of the explode, you can just do a translate to individually move those parts like we're doing here. So anybody who's used SOLIDWORKS to try to do exploded views and make fancy exploded views, it's not impossible, but it would take much longer than that. This is much, much faster. So all of the parts, once you get them into Composer from the CAD file, are considered actors. So we've got part actors, and then we've also got something called collaborative actors. So I'm saving a view here, and I can switch to one of the views that was already saved, and then I can, of course, take a look at any of these pre-saved views in here, and then anytime I can go back to my view. So the views, if you're just worried about 2D content, the views are what you're really trying to work on. As far as drawing the arrows, that is another type of actor, a collaborative actor that you draw. So here we're going to put in a straight arrow going back through the axes of these parts. Looks a little weird because it's laying on top of the parts. So we'll change some properties of that, make it darker, and then turn off this stay on top option. Well, it gets buried inside. That's okay. We'll do a translate here and kind of pull it out so it looks like it's running through and threading through those parts for a neat effect. And of course you can change the size and colors and options of those. We'll do a circular arrow on here showing maybe you need to take this nut off of here first if you're going to be able to take that off. So set our arrowhead the right direction, set our radius to the size that we want here in a second, all in the properties on the left hand side. And then maybe rotate that to a position that we want to see it in. Just like rotating a part, these arrows and things are just like part files. And then we'll turn off that stay on top option so it looks like it's behind the other parts. Nice effect. We'll get this zoomed and panned the way we want, and then we'll go down and update our view so it includes those arrows. I mentioned it at the beginning, but the Composer tool was designed to be used by a non-CAD user. So somebody who doesn't know anything about CAD should be able to pick this up with our 2-day training class, but absolutely can be used by CAD users too. It's more of an artsy type thing than a CAD thing. Here we can do section views. And as you saw in some of the output images, we can of course do bills of materials and ballooning and notes and labels on any of these parts as well. Change some properties of my section plane, get this into a view that looks good, and then maybe save a new view of that I want to publish out to a document. So it's all about creating those views. That's for the 2D content. For the 3D content, animations, interactive things, it's just a matter of creating an animation really, and then having the animation pause, having a part flash as you saw in some of the output examples. We're going to show how to do an animation. So it's timeline based. First we're going to show just a result, a finished example with Wall-E here. So down at the bottom you see the timeline. We're just going to play through this. It goes to a full explode and then starts showing the assembly of these parts. Down in that timeline there are camera keys, there are part position keys, there are opacity and color keys, viewport keys, and so on. So that's what we want to do, something like that. Just an exploded view, show assembling this together. So if you've tried messing with the animator inside of SOLIDWORKS, you could definitely do that, but it would take quite a while. I want to show you how easy it is to do something like that inside of Composer. So if you notice over on the left where I've got views, I've saved a view of each position, fully exploded, then move this part, move that part, move the next part, and saved a view of each one of those. All I really need to do then, once I have those views, is go into animation mode, go to my fully exploded view here, and drag it to 0 on the timeline. Grab the next view and drag it to 1 second, etc., dragging each of these views, just dropping them in at 1 second increments in this case, and it knows to position the parts. So really this is the easiest way to do an animation. We call this the storyboard mode. You're laying out the parts, saving a view, just like you would draw a storyboard for a cartoon you were going to create or a movie you were going to create. And then the result is this. We're playing through the video here. Don't like how some of these parts are jamming through each other, and so we're going to make some changes. We're going to, right here, this yellow box is going right through the treads. So we're going to zoom up on the 1 second area, and we're going to make some changes. We'll go ahead a little bit in time and basically copy all those keys just by a control drag in the timeline. Now, looks like those aren't going to move at all. We'll grab these keys, pull those back. So now it's of course moving in a shorter amount of time, but we'll go right here to these keys and translate those parts up and then right over the top of the keys in that time frame. So now it's going to go up. Now it's coming down diagonally, so we go over these keys and pull it up again and right over the top of those keys. Now it's going to go up and over and then down. So that's really how you tweak this. We'll do the same thing here for one of these pins. This pin's jamming right in. I don't like how the camera view is moving too fast, so let's play with some of the camera key positions here first. We'll make that zoom out later, a little better. But then we'll copy this key to much later also so it stays in that camera position and doesn't move at all. Now to change how that pin's going to move, like I did before, I'm just going to copy some keys and modify the position at those certain times. So this storyboard mode is really a great way to do animations. Make a view for your major events, your major movements, and then you come back and tweak and do the pretty fancy stuff in between to make it look how you want. So now we're going to go up and over and down. And you would continue on and do other parts that way. Play through this video or this animation and see our result. This can be saved out as an AVI file, of course, but better, as we saw, is to save this out just as the native SMG format, and then somebody use the Composer player to show this, to see this information.